WVYB Charlotte Gastonia is iVibe Radio. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. Here's your host, relationship specialist, Lori Davis.
Good evening. This is Lori Davis. Thank you so much for joining me on Real Talk. We are hoping that you're having a good Monday. We are planning to make it even better. We are going to be talking today about bounce back ability. Everybody needs that. What do you do when life kicks you down and you're on the floor? You can't roll around in the mud and stay there. You've got to be able to bounce back in life. And so we are going to talk about that today. We are going to hopefully inspire you, educate you, and get you up and motivated to have an even better life and better relationships. Joining me today is one of my favorite people in the world. It is Miss Monique Stubbs Hall. She is a native of Nassau in the Bahamas, and she's very glad that she was not there recently.
Yes, you are so right.
Terrible hurricane
was bad.
Through. Yes. She now, though, lives in Charlotte, North Carolina with me. She has an extensive background in both cosmetics and hospitality sales and public speaking. She has over 20 years of experience. She is married and a mother of 4 children. She has a passion for serving others. She wants to encourage others to not just achieve external beauty, but to cultivate the qualities that build internal beauty. She strongly believes that a parent's good example in mentoring, demonstrating a strong worth ethic, and cultivating good communication with their children sets a strong stage for their growth and success in life. She is an entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, an author, a poet, although she's going to be talking with us about more personal things today, and we're going to be talking about how to have that bounce back ability. She's famous for that saying. She is just an absolutely wonderful person. She says one of her favorite quotes is, "Despite life's ups and downs, you must take time to enjoy life's journeys." Thank you so much for being here with us today, Monique.
Well, thank you for having me, Lori. I am very excited.
You're very excited. Yes, yes. So, all of us, unless you live in a cave and don't ever come out, you've had situations in your life, everybody has, where you feel like you've been kicked in the gut. You feel like you're just laying on the floor and, you wish you could die. Mm-hmm. And that may be a little dramatic. So,
well, I don't know.
But not for some people.
Yes, that's right.
For some people, that is how it feels. For some people, maybe it's something smaller, but they're still feeling like they've been kicked in the gut and they don't know what to do. And we know that's going to happen in life. It is inevitable that those things are going to happen. So we'll kind of talk throughout the show about maybe some different scenarios that either we've been through, people we know have been through, to kind of give the listeners some ideas of people that have had to bounce back from things. It's inevitable, though, we're going to need to bounce back from things. But we don't usually know how to do that. So we're going to talk about that today.
Yes. It is very difficult to have a happy and forward-moving perspective sometimes when we have literally just been, as I say, hijacked by other people's agendas. So we feel like we have been hijacked. They just put the hood over our head and threw us in that van, shut the door, and we have no idea where we're going. And it is not always that simple. People say, well, get over it. But it's not always that simple,
If it was that simple, everybody would just get over it and move on. And I would be without a job. I wouldn't have a career as a relationship specialist because nobody would need help with their relationships. You would still have a career doing the things you're doing. Later, we'll talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing out there. But no, you're right. It's not that easy. And when you're down on the ground, as you say, rolling around in the mud, and it's not pretty, and we don't want to stay there, we can't see a way out sometimes.
Yeah, it's true. And, I feel as a woman who has been through some really difficult times with my marriage, my former marriage. It's difficult as a woman, especially when you have children, because not only do you have to be strong for yourself, but you need to be strong for those little eyes that are watching your every move. And so having that bounce back ability, or BBA, as I say, getting up off the ground, is important, because we need to also be able to teach our children that this is how you have to handle adversity. You have to get up. You have to keep moving. You cannot be like an ostrich and dig your head down in the ground and stay there in that position, And so it takes work. It takes work, but it definitely is worth it and necessary if we're going to move on and be successful in life.
Right. So Monique and I are both sitting here, and both of us are strong, successful women, but both of us have gone through times in our lives where we needed this bounce back ability. And I do remember when it happened to me, that what got me up every morning moving forward was the fact that I did have those children and I had to create a life for them. So I think for women, a lot of times children will do that. But everybody listening to the show might not have children to do that for. Mm-hmm. Or there might be men listening. I'm sure that there are men listening and they have children, but maybe those children aren't there. Or so those children aren't always the ones that do it. Sometimes they will. Mm-hmm. They'll help us with that. So let's talk just a little bit. We're going to get positive, but first we're going to talk about what are some things that happen in life to people that really absolutely knock them for a loop. Because when we were planning the show, we were talking about some of the scenarios that we've seen and we've worked with people. Mm-hmm. I had one where I worked with a lady one time who had been married, long-term marriage. The marriage had never been a good marriage. She always felt like she couldn't do enough, and her husband wasn't responding to her, and she felt like it was her. And what's wrong with me? Why can't I be a good wife? Till 20-something years into the relationship, I don't know how she was on his computer one day. She found some emails mm-hmm. that he had written. It was correspondence between him and another man. Mm-hmm. So this whole time he had been hiding from her the fact that he was gay. Mm-hmm. And so their marriage had been a shambles because he wasn't living his true identity. Mm-hmm. But she had felt like it was her. Talk about needing bounce back ability. She was devastated.
Yes, and in that type of a situation, it really does make and in this case, we're talking about a woman, but it can really make her second guess herself. Second guess, well, was it her lack of sexuality? What was it that drove him to this point when that's most of the time not really the case. It's that they actually have that leaning or that desire or just that interest and curiosity. It may not have anything to do with, and most of the time it's not anything to do with her. And then you have just devastating situations that can happen in marriage because whether it's infidelity with another male, infidelity with another female, it doesn't matter. Infidelity, period, is an emotion that is very difficult mm-hmm. for folks to deal with, and especially like you were talking about long-term relationships or marriages where you've invested time and energy yes. and emotions and money.
Money, yeah. She says.
That is definitely something where you can feel like you got hijacked, like you got jacked.
I'm thinking of, maybe I'm showing my age, but remember Friends? Mm-hmm. I loved yes. that show. Remember Ross in the very beginning of Friends was getting a divorce because his wife had left him for another woman. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? And then she was pregnant. And so then there was that whole scenario. So, they made that look funny right. with his pain, right. but he was raising this other child with his wife and her partner. Mm-hmm. And, on TV, we laugh about those things and we make jokes about that stuff. But that stuff happens.
Yes, it's real. And I always say, I know sometimes my husband and I usually joke at television and shows and things of that nature. And then I sit back and look at it from a different perspective. And then I get kind of quiet and say, wow, that's really sad. And he's like, it's just TV. But I'm like, no, but these things are created off of real life examples.
Right.
And so when you really do sit back and look at it, it's very sobering. It is very sobering. I know another scenario that I can think of that can throw us off when it comes to relationships can even be relationships with our children.
Definitely.
A child that you have raised and groomed to have a certain type of morals, etc. And then, say, for example, you find out that that youth is now pregnant. That can be something that can devastate a household and a family, and again can really do a sideswipe on father or mother or both,
yes.
And cause a lot of contention within a household. So
oh, definitely. And I've talked to, I had a long history working with families and teenagers. And so I remember talking to parents whose children had been arrested, who found out their children were doing drugs. They didn't know they were doing drugs. So there's all kinds of things that can happen in our families. We can go to work one day and your boss calls you into your office and you've been let go. Yeah. Not because you did anything wrong necessarily. That's happened a lot in our society.
Yes.
Over the last, 5 or 6 years?
Yes, it's rampant. It's rampant.
10 years maybe.
And definitely something that hits households very, very difficultly. And, one of the greatest strains in relationships and in families and households is that financial strain. So when something like that happens off the cuff, unexpected, and that income just gets swiped out of the household, we're talking about some major depression, major anxiety, which can lead to so many other issues.
And then, of course, on top of that, you have to add that the people that are involved, because usually it's not just one person when somebody hijacks you. I like the way I love that. And I love that visual of, being blindfolded and drug into this van. Well, I don't like that, but you know what I mean. Because that is how you feel sometimes when something happens that's not in your control.
Exactly.
It wasn't your choices that caused it, but yet you're in the middle of this roller coaster ride and you kind of feel hijacked. So on top of the situation that happens, it's never just one person usually alone dealing with it. There's other personalities. So we all have our different ways of dealing with stress. And the dynamics of interacting with somebody else who generally, probably my guess, doesn't deal with stress the same way you do.
Yes. And not just that, I think what impacts it even further is you may be dealing with your particular situation already, and then you have the outsiders who add onto the anxiety and stress level, because it could be that discouraging family member that doesn't even live in your house that can just say the wrong thing at the wrong time and just tip you over on the edge, and take you in a whole, different direction or a spin that you would have never anticipated that you would have flowed that way.
Yeah. So this is a good chance here. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between men and women and how we communicate when things happen to us in life. Because I think people might be interested in that. If anybody listening hasn't noticed that men and women deal with it different when stress hits, then really you got to call me and tell me how you've missed that, because I don't think most people have. So women are going to want to reach out to others, and they're going to want to call all their girlfriends, tell all their girlfriends, their family, they're looking for support.
Right.
Women talk through things and bond together through communication.
Exactly.
Now, guys that are listening, do you like that? Are you happy that she called every single person she knew to say that you lost your job or that something's happening in your family?
Yeah, they are not feeling that at all.
No, they're not.
At all.
No.
Yeah, no. And the men, on the other hand, will tend to want to keep everything bottled up inside of them, not discuss it, share it, protect it, and at the same time, they're losing it because they haven't utilized an avenue to get the feelings and things that are going on inside out. So therefore, it stays bottled in. And then their reaction to it comes out in other forms, such as sometimes anger, violence, or they can go the flip side and it's, no communication and I'm going to lock myself up in,
go into my man cave.
Go into my man cave and not deal with anyone.
Yes.
How about that? Yes.
Yes. And then women don't understand what's wrong.
Exactly.
And the men will then say, you've heard this, I'm sure, because I hear this, well, I didn't want to bother her. And so I was just trying to work it out myself, or I didn't want to tell her until things were worked out. So we handle those situations different. Is one wrong and the other one right? No, not really. Not really. Women genetically are just sort of pre-programmed that way. We feel better when we talk to somebody else and we talk through it, and that's one of our coping mechanisms. Now, ladies, I do want to say to you, though, be careful about what you say. If it's about you and you're only sharing something you did or something happened to you, share away with your female friends all you want. That's up to you. But if a guy's involved and if your guy's involved, I'm really going to want to caution you to be careful what you share. Because if he hears about what you're sharing, he may not like that. And then you're going to take whatever situation is causing you difficulties to start with. And now you've really added on top of that something that's really hurt your relationship with him. So as much as we want to sometimes as women, we have to be very, very cautious about how we talk about our guys.
And not just how we talk about them, who we talk to them.
Thank you. Yes.
Who we talk about them too, because you have one set of friends who are true friends, and they will take the information, keep that information and protect it because they know you gave it to them in confidence, and they will give you pearls of wisdom, especially if you're going to mature ones who, you know, have lived through some difficult situations, have overcome them, and are moving in the right direction. And then you have those on the other hand who will take that information and they can't wait to get a piece of something exciting so they can gossip about it. So the wisdom for us as women, well, and even men as well, is, you know, choose wisely who you share and what is the purpose of you sharing the information. Is it so that you can defame your mate or your spouse
or get sympathy
or get exactly?
Are you looking for sympathy for somebody to tell you, you know, to sort of pat you on the back and go, oh, you poor thing.
Exactly.
Which I understand when things happen can seem like a good idea. But those people can sometimes really help you stay rolling around in the mud, not looking so pretty.
Exactly.
And they can hurt your bounce back ability.
Exactly.
Not meaning to, but I love what you said, that you want to seek people who have been through something, have overcome something that can help lift you up, as opposed to just sympathizing with you and keeping you stuck down.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
And for the men, you know, we want to encourage the men to, when something's happened, if you're not ready to talk about it, I totally understand that. I get that men need to process before they talk about it. So, guys, if you're listening, I would encourage you, if something's going on in your life, even if it's something little, but you're acting different, go to your wife, go to your girlfriend and say, you know, I'm a little stressed out about something. It's nothing major if it's not. You know, I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but I just kind of wanted you to know that if I'm a little quiet, it's because I need to process something.
Right.
And as soon as I do, I'm going to come out and we're going to talk about it. Don't worry. There's nothing you need to be concerned about right now. But he needs to give her some inclination that something's going on.
Exactly. Communication is the key. It really is, because if you're not explaining this change in your behavior, you know, then the other person, the mate or spouse or, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, they are assuming that because you're withdrawing from them, that it's something they've done. So now they're spending days and days trying to figure out, what did I do to cause this lack of communication over these past couple of days. So yeah, we need to open up with each other and talk. Like you said, you may not have to be able to have a full-blown discussion about it, but just at least acknowledge that you know that you're behaving a little differently. Right. And here's the reason why. I love that, Lori. I love that.
You're almost sort of training your partner too to kind of know that when I'm quiet, it means I've got something going on and I need a little time to process, so that after a while maybe you even have to say it less, because when they see you quiet, they go, oh, okay, he's dealing with something, and I know that as soon as he gets a grip on it and he's ready, he's going to come talk to me, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to give him his space, because men will complain sometimes that the women are after them too much and they're nagging them. The
Yes.
problem is they have to help train her to sort of say, here's my pattern, here's what I do, don't worry. And she can then trust that you will come to her when you've taken that little bit of time to process and are ready. But if you don't have that understanding between the two of you, you have to get there.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't know any other way to get there except a little bit of communication.
Right. Gotta talk.
You gotta talk. You gotta talk. Yes. Yes. So, and again, it's different for men and women. So
Right.
men and women sort of are going to deal with, they're going to have that bounce back ability maybe in different ways.
True.
They're going to need to, men do need that quiet. They need that man cave.
Mm-hmm.
They need that solitude. Now, sometimes they might seek out someone else. They might seek out our opinions too. If they know that when they ask us their opinion, we're going to listen.
Right.
And not be dramatic.
Exactly.
And not over, get over emotional
Right.
or panicky, or I think a lot of times that's why they don't come to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they don't know what our reaction's going to be. Or the guys listening, I can just see the guys going, no, I know what her reaction's going to be, and that's why I don't tell her. So, women, we have to make it a safe place for them to come tell us when something is going on.
Yeah, it's definitely true. But when we were talking about situations where both parties are no longer in the same home because of a major issue, like we were talking about infidelity, and now this has caused a split, and now you're on the ground because you realize you have to start fresh, brand new. You feel like, how am I going to do this? And I know in my previous situation, I stayed much longer than I should have out of straight fear of, can I take care of myself and my children on my own without help? I just didn't believe in myself enough that I could do that because I came from my parents' home into marriage and had never been on my own. So now after 15 years of marriage, it's like, whoa, I can't do this, and so there's so many factors that keep us down there and in that space. But, as someone who had to lift herself up and dust herself off and find, that place where I could give myself permission to move forward for the betterment of myself and my children, it can be done.
It can be done. Yes. Yes. And we're going to talk more in the interview about, specific things that we can do to get that bounce back ability. But before we do that, let's just say that no matter what happens to you, whether it's something small, whether it's something huge, it affects everybody in some similar ways. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. It's definitely, a lot of people will hear my story or hear your story, hear another story, and oh, that is just so shocking. I feel so bad for you. I'm so, how did you go through? Your story is way worse than mine ever could have been. And, like I always say, we all have different stories that have shaped who we are and where we are in our lives today. But yet we all experience the same emotions. Pain is painful no matter how it came to you.
Right.
We were talking about deceit, deceit, knowing that someone has pretended to be something that they really are not, that affects all of us the same way. Many women that are being abused physically, that pain is that pain. So we're all experiencing similar effects
Yes.
of these issues as a result of our stories. And so this is why, like your program and so many others that are out there, we need to have these real talks so that those of us who've been through or are going through can share and help to strengthen and support and encourage others. I think it's awesome.
Because even if you're not going through anything yourself right now, You may have been through something in the past that you haven't completely recovered from, and you're dragging that around with you. I know so many people that the visual I get of this is whatever happened to you, you've put it in this big backpack on your back and you're lugging it around. And some people lug around stuff that's happened in the past for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
They never bounce back up.
Never get up.
They stay. So that could be the case for some people that are listening. Some people might say, well, I really haven't had anything that dramatic happen in my life. I've had a pretty good life, but I know somebody else who's going through a tough time. So I'm going to listen to this show, and I might be a better friend. So that when that person does talk about it, instead of helping them to stay stuck without meaning to, maybe I might have some pearls of wisdom that I can give them. Or I have children, and so I need to figure out how can I help my children, because they are definitely going to go through something at some point in their life, and I might be there. So we're going to get into more of how we can get that bounce back ability no matter what happens to us when we come back from this commercial break. So don't go anywhere. Monique is going to be joining us, and we will continue our discussion.
Sounds good.
This hour of music is brought to you by Profiles Video Transfer. At Profiles, we transfer all your videotapes to DVD, audio cassettes to CD, and we also digitize your photos and slides. All work is done on location with state-of-the-art technology. For more information or to set an appointment, call 704-525-9898. Profiles Video Transfer.
Teresa's residential facility is an adult family home located on the north side of Milwaukee and provides specialized care for a maximum of 4 adult residents. Teresa's Residential offers housing for adults who are unable to live independently and need tender loving assistance. We focus on the quality of life that people deserve. We have 2 private rooms and 1 double occupancy room. And 1 double occupancy room with wheelchair accessibility. Our trained, certified staff is available 24 hours a day. We are a full-service adult family home and also offer transportation to doctor appointments. Teresa's residential facility serves clients who are physically, developmentally, and mentally disabled. For more information, please contact Administrator Patricia Lewis at 414-350-4829 or email her at patricia.lewis885@gmail.com for a brochure. Teresa's residential facility is located at 3316 North 25th Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Looking forward to making Teresa's residential facility your loved one's home.
Let's rejoin relationship specialist Lori Davis with Real Talk on iVibe Radio.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope that you are enjoying our discussion on bounce back ability. What do you do when life hijacks you and you feel like you're rolling around in the mud and don't know how to get up and don't know how to get on with your life? It happens to everybody in some way, shape, or form. So we are teaching you how to bounce back. Wanted to just let you know, if you would like more information about anything that you've heard here today, you can always get it through my website. If you would like more information on relationships, I have been a relationship specialist for over 28 years. I'm in private practice here in Charlotte, but I also do sessions over the phone through Skype. I write blogs. I have a book. So I have lots of information for you. I would encourage you to go to my website. It is LoriAnnDavis.com, LORIANN Davis.com, and check out all the information that I have there for you. Sorry about that. I want to be an inspiration to you. I want to be a blessing to you. So check out my website and see what I can't do to help you to have amazing relationships in your life. It is my passion in life. We have been talking to Monique Stubbs Hall. She is a wealth of information. There's something else that you might want to know about her. She is a presenter of all sorts. One of the things that she does is she also presents poetry. People call her the Billie Holiday of poetry. She is very talented. So since we are talking about bounce back ability today, we are going to start this next section with a poetry. We're going to allow her to give you one of her inspirational poems. And then after that, we're going to take you through some steps, step by step, about some of the steps you can take to go through to get this bounce back ability. All right, Miss Mo.
So the piece that I'm going to share, Lori, it's called Falling Down, which is very apropos for our discussion today. And the piece was written right in the middle of the turmoil that I was experiencing within my own relationship. And so here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm falling down, spiraling into an abyss of darkness. This day is taking me into oblivion. Too much to handle, too much stress. I feel like there's no way out of this mess. My skies are turning gray because I'm worn down. Floods of emotions have turned my smile into a frown. I guess I must rise, at least that's what my intellect says, but my heart is weighed down and my head and my heart aren't connecting today, and so down I fall. With a seesaw of emotions, I try to contend, up, then down, strong, then weak, laugh, then cry, faith, then fear. God, when will it end? Trying to take this thing hour by hour, because beyond that, I've lost the power to have control. Dark clouds have loomed and blocked my vision, and since my sight is obstructed, my eyes and my feet can no longer connect to create a straight path, and so I miss my step and I keep falling down. But reality for me will never be I'm falling and I can't get up. No, that's not me. You see, I was created with the intellectual capacity to clearly see that to rise defies gravity. Nature makes it easy for us to stay down, and so I guess I've decided to become unnatural, to create my own laws. Because when I remove the clouds that have obstructed my vision, and my eyes and my feet reconnect, I will step up. I will remove the weights from around my heart and cast them into the sea, and watch out, because when I choose to climb off that seesaw of emotions, you will look at me and you will see a beautiful thing that, like a bird with clipped wing, I healed, spread my wings, and chose to be free.
And that's what we want you to be. We want everybody out there who goes through something difficult to come back out of it and to be free and to be better than they were before. And that is the possibility, and that's what we want to strive for. We don't want to stay stuck. We don't want to become physically, mentally, or psychologically ill because of something that happens in life that a lot of times we have no control over. So that was a beautiful poem, and you're so talented when you talk about them. So Monique and I in the Charlotte area have put together a workshop that we are doing November 15th. If you live in the Charlotte area, go on my website. I'll have it all posted there for you. But we know that there's a lot of people listening who can't come to that workshop. That workshop is going to talk about unmasking the true you and how to create unstoppable love in your life. So we don't care what's well, it's not that we don't care what's happened. We deeply care about what's happened to you.
We do.
It doesn't matter where you've come from or where you are now. What we want and our goal is to give you some steps to take you beyond that, to take you to a better place than you have ever been before. So that's what we are putting together for folks who can come to us. But for those listening, let's talk a little bit about some of those steps, because we're going to give them the benefit of some of the information. Obviously, in this workshop, we're going to go much deeper into this. But the first thing we're going to talk about is unlocking pain.
Yes.
Talk to them about what that means.
Yes. So what happens to us a lot of times is when we have experienced something traumatic within our relationships, what we will tend to do is take that whole scenario and what has happened. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to be bothered with it. We think that we can just not address it, put it in a box, shut the box, lock it up, with the key and we just put it away. And so then what happens is when we get into a new relationship, because we haven't dealt with what's in the box.
Pandora's box.
Exactly. We have not dealt with it properly. We bring a lot of the emotional pain and drama from our previous situation into the new relationship. And then we can't figure out why this relationship just doesn't seem to be working or why we're feeling certain ways. And a lot of times it may not even have to do with the person that we are now with. We're not even seeing their great qualities because we're so hung up with issues from the past. And so we're going to talk about how do we unlock, get the box out,
Right.
put the key in, open it up, and let's deal with what the emotions were we were dealing with, how we were feeling about it. Like you say, Lori, let's have some real talk and confront these things and get it all clear and straight in our head so that we can open that box and let that stuff out and be free from those weights. And that way we're going into these new relationships more healthy.
Yes. Or the other thing that people do sometimes is they let the stuff out of the box. Well, they maybe never even put it in the box, but they just keep that drama of that event going on and on and on. Now, do they realize they're doing that? Of course not. Is that their goal? Of course not. But from our perspective, looking on it from the outside, we can see that, and we can see how they are allowing that past event to still cause them issues. In relationships, I always say that a good way to tell if something from the past is affecting your current relationship is when the event happens and the other person's reaction to it, or your reaction, it might be you reacting, is out of proportion to what happened. And sometimes you can even see it yourself, but the other person definitely sees it. And they're like, well, I don't understand. That is your clue. Right. That there is something stuffed down or that you're carrying something with you from the past. Right. And it can deteriorate and destroy every single relationship you have in the future if you don't deal with it. Exactly. So yes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about unleashing the power of feminine energy. And this workshop is primarily for women. So, this part talks about feminine energy is one of those things. It is the most unmined treasure that women have that they don't even realize that they have. So we're going to talk about how do you dig down and how do you get this feminine energy is something that we are all part of. And I know it sounds kind of fluffy and it sounds sometimes kind of new agey and people go, I don't want to hear about that feminine energy stuff. But once I start talking about the details of it, they go, oh, yeah. Oh, yes. So, we talk a lot about what roles women take on in our society now. We take on very masculine energy roles. It's about how much we can do, how much we can accomplish. Can we compete with men in the world? And there are roles in our lives where we need to do that. And we are capable of doing it. But we have given up something in the process of doing that. And I have talked to very few women who, when we start to talk about it, they don't go, you're right. And it exhausts women. And the men are walking around going, I don't know how to deal with these women, right? They're all, they're pounding me in the ground. They're bossy. They're trying to take over. Where do I fit into all of this? Right. And so we have lost that template. We've lost how to be in relationships. And it's not the women's fault. How many women were raised by somebody who taught them, go to school, learn, get an education, get a career, take care of yourself, be responsible for yourself, but somehow never managed to put in there, how do you have a relationship? How do you connect with a guy? Right. How do you have that loving relationship? That part got left out. So I was talking to somebody the other day and she goes, yeah, my mom and my grandmother did a great job of preparing me for the work world. They did a lousy job of preparing me for relationships and I haven't been successful yet. which is why she's now in my class. So we're working through that. But we're going to talk about that unmined feminine energy. And so for people that are listening that can't come, some of that, one of the ways to tap into that is that stillness. So it's finding that quiet time to nurture yourself. So what can you do, ladies, that makes you feel good about yourself?
That's so important.
Yes, so that you nurture yourself. And guys that are you're listening, if she's stressed and she's all over the place and you don't like her energy because she's just being bossy or she's just, dramatic, and help her to recenter herself and calm down. So you can do that by saying, you know what? I got the kids now for now. I got the dishes. Why don't you go take a hot bath? It seems like you've got a lot going on. Why don't you go read for a little while? Take a little time. Go for a walk. If you don't have the children, or you could leave them, they're old enough, offer to go for a walk with her. So do some things to help her settle and quit doing.
Right.
And just relax. So that's my part. We're going to talk about unmasking the true you. Because you're not, maybe.
Yeah. And that's something that I think a lot, both men and women, struggle with because they are so busy trying to please the other that they lose who they really are. And so it's important. You have to develop that balance. You have to be able to be true to yourself, to know who you are, know the things that you enjoy, know what makes you happy, know what makes you sad, what makes you not feel so great about yourself.
So how do we do that? What are some practical ways that we can do that?
Well, I think one of the things that I work with individuals on, because I am also a personal coach, but helping them to discover, what are you passionate about? Sometimes we can be just working, and we're just all over the place, but we're not excited about what excites us. And sometimes we haven't even pinpointed where our true passions are. And so being able to just, like you say, sit still for a minute and think about and reflect on what are the things that I really enjoy doing, and make sure that we're incorporating those things into our life. And then I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over the past couple of years is really taking time for myself. It's okay.
Yes.
Sometimes we have difficulty. We're doing things in the home. We're taking care of the kids. We're working, and we forget about taking care of ourselves. So scheduling that manicure or that pedicure or that massage, or doing things for ourselves. And for the betterment of ourselves, because all of that is really important, that time away where we're making sure that we're building our own reserve so that we can be better in our relationships with our spouses or mates and with our children even. So I think that those are some ways that we can, focus.
Yes. And then that gets us to the last thing that we're going to talk about. And so once you have done that and you've taken care of yourself and you're feeling better and you've tapped into that passion, what are we going to do with some of that passion? We are going to give some of that passion and that love away. We're going to give the love back to our children. So we're going to be better parents. We're going to give that passion back to our partner who probably, if we have been going through stuff and we haven't been happy in life, is desperate for that from us.
Yes.
They're just absolutely craving.
Yes, screaming for it.
Screaming, what about me?
Yes.
What about the passion for me? And so we're going to talk about ways to then make sure that we share that with our loved one, because that really bonds our relationships together.
It really does.
It makes us have stronger relationships. And so there's lots of ways to do that. There's ways to do quality things with our children that create memories. But when it comes to our intimate partner, our spouse, or, our partner, maybe we're not married, but that physical connection if you listen to me talk, you don't have to listen to me talk for too long, and that generally always comes up at some point. But it's because it's important. And if the men are out there listening, they're like, yeah, it's important.
Yes.
Saving that time for me for holidays or my birthday isn't enough.
It's not going to cut it.
No, it's not going to cut it. And it's not just about the physical act of sex, although that's part of it. It's about that bonding time together. So for relationships, being able to bond with each other is very, very important. And then, of course, we can talk about, make sure if you're not in a relationship yet, loving yourself and being passionate and confident about your life so that you can then attract that right person into your life.
Absolutely.
Because when you don't have bounce back ability, if you're single out there and you're listening, if you don't have bounce back ability and you have not bounced back up from something, you're not going to attract. I hate to break this to you. I really do. You're probably going to be mad that I told you this, but you're not going to attract who you want to attract into your life without that. So you kind of have to go through those steps, get yourself into that space, so then you can attract that right person that you would like.
That's so true.
So we can find out if you're interested in any of this information and you want to hear more about it from us. Again, you can always go to my website. It's LoriAnnDavis.com, LORIANN Davis.com. But Monique, tell them a little bit about what are some of the other things you have going on? Because we've given lots of information. So tell them a little bit more, because you have some exciting things going on they might want to check out.
Yes, that's true. So I myself, as I mentioned, I am a business consultant and coach. And so you can definitely enlist my assistance. And of course, as I'm working with individuals to groom their businesses and or their person, we do end up having to touch on the areas within their lives that are stopping them or hindering them from being successful. And so that's definitely areas that I cover. But I also run a nonprofit organization, which Lori,
I do.
called the Grooming Greatness Foundation. And we have two initiatives, which is why I completely understand, having worked with many parents on both sides, why it's so important that we keep the homes healthy. And my initiatives, one is called Ladyhood, and that's LADIHOOD, and then Manlyhood. And the purpose of our initiatives are to provide a support and a bonding of the parent, guardian, or mentor with the child through the grooming process. So we are grooming our girls into ladies and our boys into gentlemen.
We have lost some of that in our society, I think, that especially, look at the young people. I don't want to pick on young people too much, but I'm going to pick on them a little bit. And how you see some of the girls dressed. They are dressed at very young ages, very provocatively. They're wearing lots of makeup and they're really young.
Yes.
We talked about pregnancies in the home. We've talked about some of those things. So we have a generation sometimes of kids who are raising themselves maybe, and that might not be the parents' fault. The parents might be working and they can't be home. But we do have young ladies who have lost touch with feeling good about themselves, feeling worthy,
Yes.
and they're not acting like ladies. And then, of course, we've got the gentlemen with the pants that are, hanging down, and we're seeing all of their underwear that we really don't need to see, those boxer shorts. And they're not acting like men, right? They're not being responsible as young men. And so you put on programs and you travel with those too. Sometimes it's not just in the Charlotte area.
Exactly. So we take the programs on the move if individuals would like us to come to their town. So if you're out of the state of North Carolina, it's okay, or out of the city of Charlotte, we will travel to bring the programs in a condensed format, half-day or full-day workshops to different areas. But our focus is educating, enriching, and exposing. And what is very important for us is that we require that the adult participant is in attendance with the child. Because what we found as we've run through these programs is that many adults, because of the way they've been brought up, have missed some very pertinent factors to being ladies or gentlemen themselves. And therefore, if they don't have it in their reserve, they certainly can't pass it on. So what we do is provide an environment where they are not only bonding and screeching and halting and taking time, one-on-one time with their child in our courses, but then they feel empowered when they get home because of all the wonderful things they've learned themselves to then reinforce these messages. So we're building stronger relationships with parent and child, and then we're building stronger communities.
So let's talk just a little bit, in the little bit of time that we have left. How can parents help their children to have bounce back ability?
It comes from their example. Children are going to see us have some difficult times. They're going to see it. We're all under the same roof. And so when you get sideswiped with something, your emotions come out, your behavior changes. They are going to see these things. However, it's how are we going to react to it? Are we going to just stay depressed and down and ignoring everyone in the household, and we're showing all these other behaviors? Or do we show anger? Every time the children come to us with something, we are just angry and mad. When we're behaving in these manners, we are not really teaching our children how to combat difficulties in a proper manner. We want our kids to see us, yes, go through it, but then we want them to see us rise up above it. Right. And when we do that, it's our example that, to me, is the best way for us to be able to teach them, because sometimes it's not always what we're saying to them, it's what they see us do.
Yes. And so we don't have to tell them the details necessarily of what we're going through, but to let them know we're going through a difficult time, but that we're going to be okay and that we can handle it, and giving them, letting them know maybe how we're handling it. I'm taking a little extra time for myself to go take a hot bath so I feel better, and then I'll come read to you. Or by letting them know that, I'm going through something stressful right now, but I'm putting it in perspective because you know what? You're here with me, and we have each other, and we have this life together, and teaching them that train of thought that maybe you need to go through, because we can get on that train that's going to take us to depression when something happens. Very easily.
I've been through it.
Yes.
And anxiety.
Yes. Or we can get on that train where we say, you know what? It happened. So what do I need to do? And we can think ourselves not into a place where the pain all goes away and it didn't happen, but we can think ourselves, by our thoughts that we choose to think, into a place where we are able to bounce back, to move on. And we have the power to do that. Nobody else does but us. We have the power.
Exactly right. And another area that we didn't touch on is the fact that we also need to mention that there are times when it has gotten to us so badly that we may need to seek professional help. Yes. And that's, one of the hardest things, I think, for both men and women to recognize, that when you are at a point where you're down on that ground for a long time and you just can't seem to get back up, it may not be able to come from the power within you. You may need to get some professional assistance to help you, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not. And if that's where you are now, coming from somebody who works with people in those situations, I'd like to add, before you get that far down, when the situation first happens and you go, this is tough, I don't know that I can do this by myself. This is really tough. The sooner you reach out to me, to somebody else, the easier it is for me to help you get past it and move on.
Exactly.
The longer you stay down, the further down you go, the more work you have to do, and the longer it takes for you to get back up. Now, I can shorten that process with you a lot, no matter where you are. But the sooner I can help you, the more I can shorten it, the even faster we can get there and the easier the journey is to shorten that. So yes, we do. That's a great point. We always want to encourage people. If you're going through a tough time, don't go through it alone.
Right.
Seek out your minister, your if you've got wise elders in your life, wise people, it doesn't matter their age. Seek those people out as well. But it never hurts to call somebody like me and say, I will, if you call me and you can set a time to talk to me, I'll talk to you for, 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't take very long for me to understand where you are. And I can tell you what I would do to be able to help you, and then you can make a decision if that's something you want to do. And if you don't, that's fine. But you know what? I may have given you a tidbit that might be helpful for you.
Exactly.
So always reach out to people. Because yes, if you could look back and tell yourself something now when you were going through some of those situations, what would you say to yourself?
I do believe that I would have actually done just what you said, is sought help earlier. I did seek help, but I would have sought help earlier because I can tell, from experience that I was that person that got to a point where I just drew the curtains, wanted to stay in bed all day, didn't want to be bothered, was suffering from depression, suffering from anxiety attacks. That stuff is real.
Oh, yeah.
And so I believe that I would have sought the help sooner. That would be something I definitely would have changed. But I do know, and I can say that coming through the journey, and this is why, like you stated, my favorite quote is, despite life's ups and downs, we must take time to enjoy the journey. And so just blessed that I was able to come up out of the journey to happier times and to realize that the journey has made me stronger, and it's given me now material to be able to help my children and to help others that are in my life who may be experiencing, similar emotions, although different situations, but similar emotions.
I like that. If I was going to say one thing to people in closing, it would be that you never know what somebody else is going through. And so random acts of kindness are such a wonderful thing that I love to stress. When you pass somebody in the grocery store, the person who's checking you out, just these people that we run into in our day-to-day lives, if we give them an extra smile and say something kind if we can, you never know what that might mean to that person. And smile yourself. Just that smiling. Yes. The act of smiling actually raises your serotonin level. Your serotonin level counteracts depression.
Wow.
And so the more you smile, the happier you're going to be. Now, I know there are times in your life where you're like, yeah, smile. If you only knew what was going on in my life, you would tell me, you're going to tell me to smile?
Right.
So you know what I tell those people? Take a pencil, put it in between your teeth, and write down on it.
Right.
And then you've got this really ridiculous, silly looking smile on your face. And you know what? Do that as many times a day as you can think to do it. Because that smile, that even if you don't mean it, just the facial muscles doing that will raise that serotonin level and is going to make you happy. So if you can only do that in your own home, in the privacy of your own home, then do that. But if you can share that with others, you're not only helping you, but you're helping others. So thank you so much. I hope that this show gave you some good information that you can take and that you can use, that it might be inspiring to you. I encourage you to take something that you've heard today and apply it to your life. Remember, we are always here to help you. Be sure to join us next Monday at 6 p.m. on iVibe Radio. This is Lori Davis, and you're listening to Real Talk on iVibe Radio. Have a great evening.
The views expressed on Real Talk aren't the views of iVibe Radio or any of its advertisers.